You are live. All right, let me get this going. Uh-oh.
What?
There it is. Okay.
What?
We're good.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yeah, we're good.
Okay.
So, welcome, everyone. We're going to go ahead and get started. There's 2 in here. Matt just started the feed.
You what?
Oh, Slot Valley said I just started the feed.
Slot Valley Racing.
Hey, Dan. Hey, Robert.
Robert Fish.
Robert
Fish.
Yeah, he just wants to be called Robert, not Fish.
Oh, you don't want to be called Fish anymore?
Uh-uh.
Okay, so I just got to call him Robert. Of course, this is the only part of Robert that I mean, he's never really sent me a very good picture of him, but I only get this part of Robert, you know.
He was on last week's stream.
Really?
Mm-hmm. He was on we talked for about an hour and a half.
Did you really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a good time.
A lot of stories.
Right? I'm ready for your sale on Friday.
So whenever you could start, you're going to start with the questions or however you do it. I'll listen and then comment or whatever.
Okay. I know where you got started with the newsstand and all that stuff, but do you want to kind of touch on where you got started with slot cars real quick, and then we'll get into the.
Yeah. So it really goes back to 1994 is how I had my newsstand and I was collecting girder and panel sets and because girder and panel I loved as a kid. And so I went to the local Meyer store and I saw that girder and panel was being reproduced by Irwin Toy in Canada. And I said, oh my goodness, I know it. Maybe I was arrogant, but I said, I know everything there is to know about girder and panel sets. I have the largest collection and I still do. I have a huge collection. And so I called Irwin Toy and said, hey, I got great ideas for how to make girder and panels better and blah, blah, blah. And so they invited me to come up there. And so my wife and I drove up to Toronto and we met Grant Irwin, which was the grandson of the founders of Irwin Toy. And so the long, story, I told him about this and well, that didn't happen. And so all of a sudden I'm walking out and Grant said, here, you want me to show you the showroom? And I said, yeah, show me the showroom. And so he shows me the showroom. And then in the corner of the showroom, they had a huge scale electric layout because at the time, Irwin Toy, and I don't know exact, I think it's 1990 or 1992, they became the master licensor and the manufacturer for scale electric in North America, Canada and North America. That means that literally they didn't make the sets or the cars, or I'm sorry, they didn't make the cars or the track. It was all the raw product came in from China into Canada. And they built the sets in Canada. Scale Electric did, or the Scale Electric sets. And so I said, oh my gosh, you have Scale Electric. And he goes, yeah. And I said, oh man, I'd love to carry this in my newsstand. And so I bought, a couple $1,000s worth of it. And then this was in 96, or 95, I decided, well, I'm going to sell out of this newsstand. And I got out of the news. Yeah, go ahead.
Were they doing the super slots then? Is that the super slots name?
It was Scale Electric, but also super slots because see the Spaniards. Okay, so go back to the 70s, and I'm not going to quote exact time and frame. I just know
you don't have to. We're just having a discussion, right. Firelight conversation, like you and I said.
So what happened was in the 70s, Scale Electric Hornby, to make Scalextric in Spain, because of the dictator Franco, you had to manufacture it in Spain. Okay. And so they had a manufacturing plant in Spain, Hornby did. And so they made all their stuff in Spain. Well, they went into bankruptcy. A lot of companies did. And so this family called the Arnauld family basically got into the courts and stole the name Scalextric from Hornby. And they were allowed to make Scalextric in Spain and Mexico. So they were able to keep it. And then outside of Spain and Mexico is called SCX. And then Super Slots is where Scalextric could sell into Spain under Super Slots. And but they still sold their Super Slots in England and in the US, or not in England, but in Canada, because they had a lot of that inventory. So they just were bringing that inventory into Canada under Super Slots. And then, so I was starting to sell Scalextric because I sold Young's Newsstand. I opened up this collectible store called Rarities, and this was in '96. And this is how I got my job with Irwin Toy, was that I sold 100 slot car sets that year of '96 at the end of the year. And I kept calling Grant and I said, hey, I need 10 more sets. I need 10 more. He goes, how are you selling all these sets? I go, I just sell them. I stack them up. I rack them, stack them. I stack them and I sell them. And and I've told this story before, but anyways, I got fired from Rarities and I was building homes in Michigan and Grant Irwin. So in '96, let me back up a little bit. So in '96, I was working for this guy that had this store I built, or I started, called Rarities. Well, he had a connection with Shop at Home. And he said, Bryan, do you think we could do a Shop at Home show about slot cars? And I said, yeah, we could do. And so I don't know how I got a hold of Alan Smith, but Alan Smith, he's the one that stole Scalextric. I don't want to use the word stole, but he basically convinced Scalextric Hornby to let him be the distributor of Scalextric in the US. And they lost the license to Scalextric. Irwin Toy did, because of Alan Smith. So in '96, Alan Smith and I went on Shop at Home and tried to sell slot car sets in October of '96. And then in '97, Grant Irwin called me in March or something of '97 and said, hey, Bryan, we lost the license to Scalextric because Alan Smith stole it from us. And we have all this inventory. We have $1 million worth of inventory that we have to get rid of, because we're now gonna get into SCX. And that didn't happen until '98. We didn't go. Grant and I, Technotoys really kind of was in its infancy in '97. And officially its first year, Technotoy is 1998 is when they officially became what they were, because the Arnauld family. See, the Arnauld, I hate to be so complicated, but this is such a complicated story.
It's very complicated.
The Arnauld family literally has gone through 6 distributors because they are so screwed up on, they went through Eldon, Matchbox, Technotoys, Aduca, and now they're doing it themselves. And they still don't know what they're doing, because, it's still, it's selling, but it's not selling like it used to. So anyways, I don't want to get ahead of myself. So Grant Irwin said, hey, we need to get rid of Scalextric. So we're going to hire you to get rid of all the inventory. And this is when I started basically traveling the country doing trade shows in '96, because I would go into hobby stores and nobody was carrying slot cars. They were carrying HO somewhat, but 132nd, 132nd? No, we don't want that 132nd. And so I basically was just pushing 132nd from 97, 98, 99. And then in 1999 is when Irwin Toy decided to drop their slot car line. But anyway, so Grant and I in 1998, we went to SCX. Well, Scale Electric or Technotoys. I'm so complicated.
It's a mess. It's a lot. It's a mouthful too.
It is. We went to Technotoys. We saw the new owner. We saw all the people at Technotoys. You know, they had some great ideas in 98. And 98 and 99 were just kick-up years. I mean, we came out with some great sets. And we were doing extremely well. And then all of a sudden in 99, George Irwin, which was the current president of Irwin Toy, said, we don't want to do slot cars anymore. It's not really our niche. You know, we want to be toys. And so Grant told me that we were going to get rid of slot cars. I said, that's a fine, you know. And so Bob Haynes, REH has a big factor in this. You know, people say that Bob Beers is the king of slot cars of Aurora, and the guy that really is the king of slot cars, the guy that really put it all on the mat is Bob Haynes at REH. Now, he died about 3 or 4 years ago, but Bob Haynes is the one that bought everybody out. Okay, he bought every company when they were going out of business. Cox, Eldon, Scale Electric, SCX, Irwin Toy when they went out of business, Tyco. I mean, Bob was telling me the story that in what was it, 1999 or 2000, he was at Toy Fair in New York City, and Tyco came to him and said, hey, listen, we want to sell you everything that we have. Everything. Okay. And Bob Haynes, oh my goodness, the amount of product that he bought from Tyco or from Mattel, thousands of cars, hundreds of thousands of cars. And told me, I love to tell this story because Kim told me this. Kim is Bob Haynes' daughter, but Bob Haynes told me the story that in 2000, maybe, was it 1999, 90, in the 90s, somewhere in the 90s. He got a guy call me. This just by chance. He had a friend call him, said, hey, I got this warehouse in Cincinnati, and we have 250,000 Tomy sets that were returned from manufacturers sitting in this warehouse, and we want to get rid of them. Will you give us a quote? Bob goes, yeah, I'll give you a quote. So Bob Haynes goes to this warehouse, and there are 250,000 race sets in this warehouse. 250,000 sets. Now, some of the sets were opened, some of the sets were used, and so he had to take his family, and he had to even buy a building, but he got all those sets out of there. He broke all the cars out. He broke all the components and everything. And, you know, he had everything. And same thing with Aurora, he bought the entire Aurora factory. When he went into the Rochester, he bought everything. He had everything. And then in 2015, Kim, she had this warehouse where all the Aurora was stored. And she said, Bryan, I want to show you something. I said, okay, all right, show me. What do you got? Because I kept telling Kim, you got to inventory. You got to put this on the internet so people can see it. And she would tell me, Bryan, you don't understand. Let me show you. So she took me to this warehouse. It was on Montgomery Street in Cincinnati. It used to be a theater, and they bought it and he turned it into a warehouse. And I walked into that building and literally my jaw dropped because it was see, during the 90s and 80s is really where things were going. But Bob was in his later years, things had kind of died out at that warehouse. It was kind of run down. They had holes and there was leaking, but that was their manufacturing hub. That's where they took all these sets, broke them down, and was making his own sets. Well, that had kind of died out because he was now in his 80s, and he was kind of he wasn't doing what Bob Haynes used to do, because he was in his 80s.
Yeah.
So she told me, she took me in this building, and it literally had, there was boxes of Aurora bodies on the floor, just hundreds of them, thousands of them, just on the floor. The box had broken, and nobody cleaned it up, just semis, just 1,000 semis. And then she took me upstairs. I can't remember. I couldn't. I remember it now. It's just like I go into this room, and in this room had to be 20,000 bodies, chassis of all original Aurora stuff. Boxes of elves, 400 elves just in this little box. And it was just all this Aurora stuff. Thousands of it. It was just too much. I was telling Adam a couple days ago when we went to New Jersey, I said, so my van, you guys have seen my van, but I was going in 2015, I was going down to Kim's and back in 2015. I must have filled up that van 200 times with the stuff that we sold in 2015 and 2016, because there was just so much of it. I remember one day she was helping me load up the van, and she goes, "Hey, Bryan, come here." I said, "Okay, what?" So I come over there, and she picks up this box, and she look, there were 250. I can't believe I remember. Oh my God. There were 250 black, yellow Bel Airs still wrapped in the cellophane paper. Because Bob, this is what I keep telling people. And I'll get back to SCX. I just want that people do not understand the amount of product that was made in the 60s and 70s. We're not talking thousands, 10,000, 5,000. We're not talking those numbers. We're talking hundreds of thousands. And that's why there is such that's why there's so much product in all these shows that you go to, because there was so much of it made. But the stuff we're making, like, look at this. So this thing right here, we sold this today. This thing only has 1,008. 1,008. They only made 1,000 of these. 1,000.
That's crazy.
In 10 years from now, 20 years from now, who's going to have these?
Well, and I think the worst thing for the industry, the hobby, whatever you want to call it, that we're not having the bigger sales is it's not allowing innovation and R&D and Aurora made everything. I mean, you had the train crossings, the culverts, the turnarounds. Well,
see, and that's the thing is that, Aurora in the early 60s, and they were into everything. Model kits, they were expanding, and things were so much cheaper back then. I mean, they were just experimenting on everything. But one of the big problems that a lot of these manufacturers, and this is what happened with SCX or Technotoys. I'll try to stick with Technotoys. So Technotoys, let me jump into Technotoys, and then I'll get to what you were saying. So Technotoys basically took over the license for the Aduca family for SCX or for Scale Electric in Spain. And that's when I came on board in 2007 to help get Scale Electric or SCX Spanish in the U.S. to sales up, because Alan Smith, he had run the Hornby, but he wasn't doing a very good job, and they canned him, and they got a new guy in, and Scale Electric in the U.S. has got the same problem it did 20, 30 years ago. You've got Scale Electric USA, and then you have Scale Electric Hornby, and they both want to make their margins. And because of the dollar thing, now you've got cars that are $69 Scale Electric, when you got Carrera cars which are 42 or 43. They're driving themselves literally out of business. And so Technotoys, they were doing great 2008 and 9. Then all of a sudden they got this new chief financial officer, corrupt as a toad. Okay. He was embezzling. And then he wanted to go into bricks. He wanted to go into cheap Chinese bricks for some reason and make a brick set. And I said, oh my gosh, you guys are. And then they wanted to do compact because they wanted to try to get a cheaper set. And so they were trying to branch off into other markets. And then in 2011, so in 2004 is when, I'm sorry,
no, you're fine.
In 2004, they were the first to do digital. They came out with the most revolutionary system, digital. Well, the first version was okay, but had a lot of problems. First of all, the chips in the cars were glued to the chip. So you couldn't take a chip out when they failed. The car, you'd have to throw it away. Well, they realized, well, that's not a good idea. And so when I went over there in 2008, I went into the warehouse. And in the warehouse, there were these two, I don't know if you know what a Gaylord is, a giant Gaylord. They're pallet boxes, not kind of like giant pallet boxes. They're 4 feet wide, 4 feet high. And inside of these Gaylords are hundreds of thousands of Scalextric digital cars, just filled with them that had they had the chips glued into the chassis. And so they redid the whole line. And then that's when they called me and said, hey, we need somebody to travel the country and promote SCX Digital in 2007. And that's what I did. But their first venture of digital in 2004, 5, and 6 was a huge failure. I mean, I went to so many retailers in 2007, and I'd walk in there and say, we got SCX Digital. It goes, get out of my store. Get out. That stuff is junk. I go, yeah, but wait a minute. This is all different. We were completely different. Man, we got the pit box. We got this tower, man. This thing is the greatest thing on earth. And it took off. We were selling digital sets faster than we could get them manufactured. And then they had, then in 2008, you got the collapse of but hobby stores, we lost about 1,000 hobby stores between 2010 and 2014. About 1,000 hobby stores closed in that time frame. A huge amount of hobby stores closed. And then Technotoys, they went into bankruptcy because the CEO had really kind of screwed up the company. And
Tyco did that too.
Well, no. So here's the history with Tyco. Okay. And here's the history with a lot of these companies. And I've said this before, is that Tyco, and this is with any company, is the buyers, let's say, we experienced this with Irwin Toy, so the buyers, let's say at Walmart. So the buyers at Walmart come to you and say, hey, we want to do a set, but we want to do loops and all this kind of stuff. And so then the manufacturer's kind of stuck. Okay, they're not going to buy unless we put loops in it. Well, we know if we put loops in it, they're not going to sell, or they're going to have a lot of returns. And so a lot of these companies, they are forced into doing a lot of these ideas by the buyers to get the sale, but then the sales don't always
come to
line up
fruition.
to it. And so Tyco was going through that. And then all of a sudden Mattel buys them, and Mattel thinks, oh, this is going to be a great thing. But then Mattel realizes one thing, which I don't think they realized when they bought it, because they only had it for 3 years, and they died, and they canceled it. In 96, 95, 96, it was still Tyco. And then all of a sudden he sold to Mattel. And within 1999, Mattel said, we don't want all these SKUs. We can't have all these SKUs. What are we doing? And they were doing 9 million a year. And they said, that's not enough. We want to do more. And they just dropped the entire line in 2000, basically. 2000 was the last year for Tyco. Bob Haynes bought everything in 1999. And, he basically had literally everything Tyco ever made. And I mean, he bought hundreds of thousands of cars, boxes of, he had one time he had, I think 250,000 these Canadian F1 cars that were for the Canadian market. They were just finished, but the sets were never done because, when I was with SCX or with Technotoys, we sold Carrera or Compact into Target in 2008 and 9 and 10. And I tell this story because it just kind of gives you an idea of what a retailer could do if their volumes are right. And the problem with Technotoys wasn't necessarily the product. It was two components of the Technotoy car. And I'll tell you why it was a problem. But anyways, in 2008 and 9, they sold 250,000 sets in 2008 and 2009. So that's literally 500,000 sets. So you're right. So when you're having quantities like that, a retail or a manufacturer like AutoWorld. So if AutoWorld would get an order for 100,000 sets, that would be a game changer. Just like this that's why I said the Love set is the beginning. It could be a game changer, with other gas stations wanting to get into this. This could drive numbers up, which then gives more money for research and development, which gives more money for new product ideas, new cars, new bodies, new chassis. But if you do 500,000 sets, but the problem with SCX and Compact and even SCX cars were two things. And I'll show you with this car right here. And I told Technotoys, but one of the Arnold family members had the patent for this technology. And so he got a 10% commission on every car that sold this automatic return spring. So this automatic return spring, to watch what happens when your guide pin turns. See, it kind of straightens out. You see how it kind of straightens out?
Yeah, it flips back.
That's called the ARS, the automatic return spring. All right. Worst design ever, because what happens is these little prongs here, and the same thing is on Go cars, is these prongs get bent or break off and your car is useless. Okay. And so this part right here with the ARS, that was patented. Okay. And the little ARS spring, that would break too right here. You really can't see it, but it's a little spring, and that would break too. And this guy, one of the family members, he was getting a 15% commission on every one of these ARSs that was put into every car. And so he was basically making cars that were defective from the and so that's why we had a 20, because they asked me, I said, Bryan, why do we have a 20% return rate on our Compact Go sets at Auto or at Target? I said, I'm glad you asked that question. I said it's because of the ARSs on the cars, because if the kids turn these, they break and then they just take them back. When they should have been like Carrera cars. Okay, Carrera has a fixed mounted guide pin. The guide pin doesn't move or doesn't break, so it's not going to break. Well, they didn't want to listen. Plus the turbo. What's that? Yeah, that's
kicks.
Yeah, Carrera Go. And we lost the license. We lost the deal with Target because Target didn't want to buy because we had a too high return rate. And the same thing with digital, because we had we were selling digital into Bass Pro, and we were selling 20,000 sets at Bass Pro, and we were having returns because of this ARS and because of bad chips. They were having a problem. See, the one thing about China is that if you don't watch what the Chinese are doing constantly, they will figure a way to cheat. And that's exactly what they did. And unfortunately, that affected a lot of SCX product and a lot of Scalextric product out of or Technotoys product.
Well, those Bass Pro, there was quite a few defective and mess ups from them on those Bass Pro sets and cars. I mean, you had the one big one with where they put Harvick and Stewart swap their names and everything on the cars, and that was like a $250 digital set then.
Correct. I mean, these guys didn't really know about when you're and the cars were going the opposite direction than NASCAR, that was another big problem. But one of the big problems with SCX Digital was the quality control. They had no quality control in China, and that is why the systems fail. It was, and I still believe this today. No one can tell me different. I'm sorry. I'm going to stick to my belief. There's no other digital system better than the original SCX digital system, with the tower and the fuel indicator and the interaction that you had with the lane switching of the car with the little guide pin coming out of the center. There's no system better than that. It was way advanced. It still is. And unfortunately, when Aduca came out with the advanced system or the WOS system, and then when they did the advanced system, no one asked me, in my opinion. I was doing all the tech support in the United States from 2007 all the way until they went out of business. And I kept telling them every day, here's the problem, here's the problem, here's the problem. And they didn't listen.
Well, and is this when you were also traveling around in what's his name? Crazy Cal?
Yes. Oh, Crazy Cal. That guy. Oh my gosh. I couldn't believe it. So I'm telling you, I was doing videos and I was just doing them on a camera and just cheap videos. And I was uploading every time I'd go to a person's house, I would upload. And then he called and he said, "Hey, you're going to be traveling through Arizona. You got to stop and see my layout." And oh my gosh, he was an engineer, electrical engineer. He basically re-engineered the whole system. NASCAR would drive the right way. He had a pit stop system for all 6 cars to go into each one of their own little bays. It was an advanced system beyond anything else. And
I still watch it sometimes. I love
2008. That was 2008. Oh my gosh. And then I went to an airline pilot in Texas. He literally built a building for his airplane, and then upstairs, $20,000 upstairs, he built this big table and did this elaborate digital system set back in 2009. And then, there were just so many people, random people that literally I had no idea. They said, "Hey, come over to see my layout." A random guy just coming in. It was 2008 to 2012 was an exciting years of visiting hobby stores. I must have visited at least 2,000 hobby stores between 2007 and 2011. 11 is when it stopped. December of 2011 is when they officially went out of business. Chavez, he was the last person at Technotoys, me, and it was just the two of us. And they had 20,000. We had 20,000 compact sets sitting in a warehouse in Illinois. And they said, can you get rid of these sets? And I said, I'll try. And so I contacted Woot at the time, was an independent company. They hadn't been bought out by Amazon. And I told them about these sets we have. And man, that was a great deal. 20,000 sets. I had 20,000 sets. 20,000 times, what was it? I think $25, I think. It was $500,000. That's right. I couldn't believe it. It was $500,000. And I got this check in the mail. And the check was for $500,000. I couldn't believe it. We sold them 25,000 sets. And those sets, so this is how fast those sets sell. So those sets went on sale. I don't know. I think it was on Black Friday. And by the end of the day, they were gone. All 25,000 sets were gone, completely sold out.
Holy crap.
Oh, it was amazing. I couldn't believe it. And so, and I still get people calling me. I mean, I might get maybe every 6-7 months, of some, because my name is still on all these compact sets. The phone number 877-729-2099. You'll still see it on compact sets. People still calling, hey, can I get this part? Can I get this? I mean, I still have maybe 500 hand throttles and, maybe 200 or 300 pieces of track. And I don't have any cars left, but, that's kind of, what people don't understand is that 132nd in the United States, it's the resurgence, the real heydays were only from 1999 to 2005. Those were the peak days. I mean, you're talking less than 6 years. Okay. I mean, Fly was making product, but not, they weren't in mass production in the US. Okay. Not until 1999, 2000 is when it all started exploding. 2001 exploded, 2002, 2003. And then they went out of business 2005 or 6, I think. And then Ninko, they had their implosion in 2008 and 9, and Ninko was the same thing. They were ex-employees from Technotoys.
Yeah, from SCX, yeah.
Yeah, they got disgruntled and they wanted to start their own company. And that's
didn't they get mad when they shipped everything off to China, and so they tried to start something there in Spain?
Right. And that's yes. And you can only make so much in Spain. I mean, everybody says, okay, so you have a car, okay? So how much of this can be made in the United States, let's say? Okay, well, you can mold all the parts in the United States. Everything can be molded in the United States. It's, that would be the cheapest part of it. Now you have the manufacturing. Now you have the assembling of this product, okay? And I had this conversation. You were talking about being in the gaming industry, okay? So there was a game that came out just at the end days of my Young's Newsstand days, and then when I started Professor Tinker's Workshop in 2001, and that was Mage Knight by Wheelscapes. Okay, so Mage Knight was this little miniature game, and they had all these little miniatures, and they were pre-painted. Okay, do you have one there, Wheelscapes, Mage Knight? Yeah, okay, and so those are hand painted. Well, and I go, how could they do that? And so I was at one of these trade shows and I was talking to the owner of WizKids. He said, well, here's how it is. You got a factory there. You got 10,000 Chinese in these factories, 10,000 sitting in tables, and they're given one figure. And they take that one figure and they have one job on that figure. They do that. Then they set it down and the next Chinese does the other. And by the end of the day, you've got 10,000 figures all finished. Well, that's the same thing with these cars, because you're going to have 10,000. So you're going to have 10,000 cars done, or painted or sprayed, that is the labor intensiveness of these cars. Could they be made in the United States? Oh, I'm sure they could. Would the cost go up? Yeah, the cost could probably double, based on economics nowadays, on what you have to charge and all this kind of stuff. But, COVID put a crimp. Now it's going the other way. China is. Why do you think Xi Jinping is here in the United States? Is because his country is hurting because the manufacturing in China has fled like crazy, and they're having trouble getting their manufacturing to manufacture stuff. And that's what got me in trouble basically in 2001 and 2, is because Auto World, I said to him, I want to put a hold on some of these cars. And Craig he didn't really say yes or no, but, he was like, oh, things will be okay. And I was kind of falling for it too, because I know that in the long run, what we have is going to sustain itself. It's just product, and there's new product coming in. People like the product that we have. And they realized that. And, everybody was in a crunch in 2001. See, people don't understand that in 2001, a sea container from China cost about $4,000 to rent a sea container or buy a sea container to fill it with product. about $4,000. That went from 4,000 to 21 to 30,000 a sea container in less than 6 months. And so what do you do? How do you recover from those costs? What do you do? What do you increase your product cost? You have to, or else you can't. You try to bring in smaller items so you can pack more items in a sea container, so you can divide that $20,000 into more items. Because if you fill it with large items, then now your large items are going to cost even more because you have to divide that cost into all those larger items. So doing slot cars is even better because you can divide it into all these thousands of slot cars because they're smaller in packaging. So that put a big strain on everything, the COVID, but I'm kind of getting off track there. So let's kind of take a break here, or I'll kind of take it. If you had some questions or something like that.
When did the WAS system come into play?
Okay. So in 2000, okay, so here's what happened. In 2012, I drove to Las Vegas and I did my last trade show at the NERSA show under Technical. I still had products. So Aduca was the new licensor, and they said for me to go ahead and go to the show. And they would let me know by the end of the show if they're going to keep me as an employee. And so I went to the show, and then on my way back, I remember this phone call. I got a phone call from Aduca, and they say, we're going to hire you at the same pay that you were getting, and we want you to come to Spain in June. And so in June, they flew me to Spain, and I sat down with Aduca. And this is, I said to him, the president of Aduca, Ferencia, his name was Ferencia. I sat down with him. I sat down with all the other people. I sat down with just kind of like in a room. We weren't in a formal room. And I said, listen, I'm going to tell you something you don't want to hear. And this is the way I operate. I said, I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to tell you things you do not want to hear. Okay. But you have to hear these because this is what's going to happen. Within a couple of years, the Arnauld family is going to screw you, and they're going to take away the license of SCX from you, or the Scalextric from you, and you're going to be stuck without a license. Okay. You're going to have all this product, all this investment. So in 2012, they started to re-engineer the digital system. And they didn't ask my opinion on anything, which is my biggest anger and my biggest grudge that I hold is that of one person that knew more about SCX Digital than anybody else in this country, because I sold it, I managed it, did tech support for it for literally 5 years, and they didn't ask my opinion on one thing in the WOS system. The WOS, and that's how the WOS system was created. Well, the Arnauld family didn't like the WOS system, and so they, right at the end, 2015 is when they, all of a sudden, I got an email saying that we have been frozen out of the factories in China, and the Chinese, or the Arnauld family, is telling the Chinese factories that don't listen to Aduca because they don't own the license anymore. And Aduca's going, what are you talking about? We just invested $3 million into the WOS system, and you're telling us that we don't have the license anymore? Yeah, that's right. You don't have the license anymore. So Aduca lost the license to a WOS system. And so in a sense, it just dropped. It literally just stopped. And we had all this inventory in the United States. I mean,
so there was never any support for the WAS system. There was never any support for the WOS.
No, because I never got any product. All I got was the raw product. I mean, the sets and the cars and everything, but I had no, they did send me some control units, some hand throttles, but I never got a lot of chips or things like that to keep it going. And they didn't make that much to begin with. And it was only in the year, I only did 2 trade shows promoting WOS, and that was in 2013. And then 2014 was the last year. And they said, Bryan, it's all done. And so you need to sell this inventory. Can you sell this inventory? And so I was trying to sell this inventory in 2015 or 2014, 15, and 16. And finally, by 2016, I cleared out most of the inventory of the old WOS. And then when we opened here in 2020, I might have had like maybe 15 or 20 WOS sets or WOS sets. And then that was it. And then they came out with the advanced system, and they still haven't gotten into the United States. I'm gonna tell this, and I don't want to. How do I do this tactfully? I'm not going to do it tactfully. I'm going to do it the way I'm going to do it. The only way that the advanced system is going to sell in the United States is for me to get a phone call from the Spaniards in Spain saying, "Hello, Mr. Young, could you sell SCX in the United States?" And I'd say, yes, I would be glad to sell SCX in the United States. As long as you listen to me, send me parts and support, and I will make SCX great again.
Now, the actual family's the one doing the license now, right?
Yeah, the family has got the license now. Yes, and I think I burned that bridge about 2 years ago because I did a video saying you need to call SCX and let them know that we need support in the United States. And then I got this nasty email from from Spain saying, "Why did you do that? You're not a professional." And I go, you know what? Screw your professionalism. You got all these people in the United States that has bought in your product. Okay. The original Adam Hurt. Where does he come up with this original Adam Hurt? This guy has got serious mental issues.
Well,
he kind of got. Have you driven in a car with him for 7 hours? Oh, my gosh. He comments about everything in the car. Hey, look at that, Brian. Why is that like that? Hey, Brian, why is that like that? Ask him what was the issues with SCX. Okay, so the SCX Digital, like the biggest problem with SCX Digital was, number one, the components in the pit box. They were inferior resistors. And this is what Chinese do. China does. They put inferior products in their electronics and they fail badly. This is why I always tell people there are 3 tiers of RC cars. There's Dollar General or five below RC cars, which are the very low bottom garbage. Then you have, Dollar General RC cars. Then you have Walmart RCR cars, and then you have Traxxas. Okay, completely different cars. And if you don't watch the Chinese, every minute of manufacturing, they're going to put in inferior products, and that's exactly what it was. For example, let me tell you a story. 2009. There's one thing that I learned about being the tech support guy with Technotoys, is that I really believed in trends. And so when a customer called me and say, "Hey, Mr. Young, I've just bought a digital set and my hand throttle doesn't work," I said, "Okay, all right, I'll send you a new one." Now, if I had one person call me about a hand throttle, I would just kind of, okay, it's one hand throttle. But if I had another person call me within the same week, then I think, okay, maybe this is a trend. So what happened was, on the digital hand throttle, there were 3 little brushes on the hand throttle that when you turned it, you would go over bands, which would then create a faster speed. Those 3 bands were supposed to be made out of copper, and were supposed to have a little bubble at the end so that when they slid along these circuits, they wouldn't ruin the circuits. Well, what the Chinese did to save money is on this, because I had to take one apart, and I looked at it, I go, these aren't right. These basically have metal, and at the end of the tips, they're not bubbled, they're not rounded or soft, they're just raw metal. And what was happening is people would use their hand throttles, and they would scrape the circuit to the point where it wasn't contacting anything. It was ripping the circuit off. So they sent me 2,000 hand throttles from Spain to my house. And I was boxing all these hand throttles up. I was packing up all these hand throttles for all these customers that had bad hand throttles. And then I said, you know what? I better open one of these up. I opened one of these hand throttles up. Guess what?
They're bad.
They're all bad. I had literally packed up 2,000 hand throttles ready to ship them, and they were all bad. And so they had to send me all new hand throttles because they were all bad. And that was just one example of the Chinese. If you don't watch what they're doing, they're going to send you crap. And that was the biggest problem. If they had controlled their quality control, they would have had a great, well, it was a great product. Even though I knew how to, like, for example, people would have shorts in their systems. And that was because, so if you open up a digital switch track, I tell people later on, I tell people to open up your switch track and rip out all the wiring, because you don't need the wiring on the digital switch track, because your cars are going fast enough that they don't need that jumper. Well, sometimes but we'd get a lot of shorts on the system. The system would short out and then burn out. Well, I found out is I would open up a switch track, and because they soldered all these pieces, these Chinese were soldering. Well, what they wouldn't do is they wouldn't take all that extra solder, and all that extra solder would just stay inside there, and it would lodge in the wrong place, and it would short out the switches. I go, you got to be kidding me.
They didn't blow any of them out?
Huh?
They didn't blow any of it out. They just put the
No. Are you kidding me? No, that would be easy. And the same thing with the chips. They used inferior digital parts for the chips, resistors. And then the other big problem. The biggest problem was solenoids. Now, you know what a solenoid is, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
It's basically a piece of plastic or glass, and it's got two wires in that. And that solenoid, when you draw power to it's gonna clamp shut. Well, the solenoids they put on these terminal tracks, because the solenoids were at each track, so that when your car would go over it, then that solenoid would activate. Well, these solenoids, they were inferior solenoids, and half of them would break. And that was another problem with the set. Other than that, I mean, I knew how to fix problems. So like my set, and I would fix people's problems, but the long-term problem was, a pit box. There were three main resistors in the pit box, and one of those resistors would overheat. And when they overheat, because they were inferior, and when they overheated, they would fry a pit box. And when a pit box is fried, they don't work. And there's just little things that they didn't think of when they were making the system, and they didn't have quality control. That's all I'm saying, is that you have to have quality control in China. If you don't, you're screwed.
Do you know how different or alike the digital system that you worked on and the new SCX Advance is?
Okay, so there's really no difference. Okay, so the main feature of SCX, let's just say the SCX digital system with their track and is the guide pin and that little that's going to go up and down. Okay, there's no difference in that concept other than the programming and how you're refueling. With the WOS system, you're refueling. You look on your hand throttle, and well, you don't want to look at your hand throttle when you're driving. But with the original digital system, you didn't have to. You just looked at the tower. When you're driving, you're looking at, I better get gas, and you'd pull in. It's kind of like you're driving your car and you're looking at your gas. You're not looking at your hand throttle. That's not what you do. You're not driving to go, okay, I want to check my fuel. And that's what big difference with the digital system. The advanced and the WOS system compared to it's just the programming that's in the cars, in the chips. But the chips and the little mechanism going up and down, dropping the guide pin into the track, catching the switch, letting you switch your lane, that's all the same. There's nothing different there.
Did you buy a lot of fly cars?
Okay, so fly cars, I did not buy a lot of fly cars. Okay, so people say, okay, well, what, how are you into this, Bryan? I do not have, people think that I have a huge collection of slot cars. Well, I do not have a big selection of cars.
It's the Legos that you have a big collection.
I have a huge selection of Legos. Okay. And I can't collect everything. Okay. I was gifted at sales and I was given a task when I came on to Irwin Toy back in 1997. He said, you have to move $1 million in inventory. I said, okay, you have 3 months to move, all this inventory. And they paid me I tell this story on the live stream all the time. They paid me $750 a week back in 1997. And they paid me all my expenses. And they bought me a vehicle. I bought me a van and I started doing trade shows and I did it. I went everywhere. I visited every hobby store you could possibly imagine. And I was just selling a SCX or a SCX. No, I was selling Scale Electric, getting rid of all the Scale Electric sets. And Scale Electric was just coming into the United States. They had done some major changes in their car, like Technotoys did. You look at Technotoys cars in 1998 compared to the Scale Electric SCX cars before 1998 when they were with X and when they were with Matchbox. That more of that frame stickers. Night and day how the manufacturing changed. Yeah, go get one of those cars.
I'll show you, sir.
I mean, they literally within 3 years they went revolutionary, and that was because of Fly. Okay, Fly was changing.
Oh.
Yeah, so that oh my gosh. So okay, so that car, that car right there, the NASCAR, that was my first car that I got approved with Irwin Toy. That car right there, Jeff Gordon. And the problem with Jeff Gordon was, and I'll tell you about that one next. That one there. So the car there, the Jeff Gordon, put up the Jeff Gordon car. Okay, so that car, that was a curse because that came out in 1997, 98, all right? And 98 or 99. And the problem is we didn't have the money for a second license. And so there were a lot of people that hated Jeff Gordon, all right? I mean, hated him. And so we had to put a 55 car, generic 55 car in that set, and nobody wanted to buy that set. It was the hardest set to sell. But if you turn it up, pull the car from the body, pull the body off the car. This was the best body chassis ever made. It's like a wire frame. It pulls right from the body. It unclicks.
Where does it unclick?
It should just unpop. It should just unclip from the body.
It's screwed into the spoiler.
Let me see. I didn't think it's screwed in. Is it?
I think so.
Then it's a wire frame.
There we go.
There you go. All right, so turn it up so they can see the wire. See, that was a wire frame, and they could do that for all the chassis. That was a great body. I love that body. I love that, or that chassis. I love that chassis, and that was just great because you could put it on any body, and I still think that somebody should do that type of body so that could fit on any kind of car. And yeah, that's nice. And so that was our first set that we did with because they still had that technology, but then they dumped that in 2001. But that we already lost the license in 2001.
And then this is what you were talking about. I mean, just night and day difference.
Yes, night and day difference. So that's their cars they started coming out with in 1998, 99, 2000, all the way until nowadays. They literally re-engineered everything, and then same thing with Hornby. Hornby re-engineered everything, and then Ninco followed Scale Electric or SCX and Scale Electric in Spain. But they were really following Fly because Fly is the one that started those type of cars.
The much more detailed, right?
Correct. A lot more detailed. Now more expensive too. I mean, not necessarily. I mean, you got more deco, and so that's more screen printing. screen printing is impressions, and each impression has a value. And so the more impressions, then that's more cost to that car. And, I think they put just a lot. I think sometimes they put too much on cars nowadays. That's just my opinion. I don't think every car.
This one I bought from you.
Probably. When did you get that?
End of 2020. 2021.
Oh yeah, man, that was the last inventory of that.
Yeah, I bought you out of all the Earnhardt cars you had at the time.
Oh my god.
All the 132nd Earnhardt. I got
I had a warehouse. So in 2016, Kim at REH, she bought like $20,000 of Scalextric NASCARs. We had like 20 different cars, maybe 1,000 of each car. And she said, Bryan, I don't need this inventory. Can you buy these cars back? And I said, yeah, I can get them back. So I got them back, and I was warehousing them here in Wayne at this barn out this field. Of course, it's all gone now, but I was selling these cars to retailers as fast as I can. And then I had a guy finally said, hey, I'll take all of them. I think like 20 grand he bought. Boy, I tell you, I wish I had all those cars now, but you know what? I found out talking to, so Chuck Arrett is the guy that hired me with SCX. I called him about a year ago, and he said, you won't believe how much inventory there was sitting in China that they just literally just threw away. Just threw away. I mean, just Gaylords, Gaylords after Gaylords, hundreds of Gaylords, just of cars, of track. They just took them right to the dump and just dumped them in the dump. Because the product is ending and they don't want to keep it in their warehouse. They just trashed it.
That's like that Atari ET game from the 80s that was so bad they ended up filling up an Arizona landfill with.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. And that's what they do it all the time. So yeah, anyway.
Go ahead.
Well, no, so the evolution of 132nd really it never died in Europe. Okay, so people have to understand that 132nd never died in Europe. It always, from 1960, it kept on going. Where in the United States, 132nd really died in late 60s. It died, and HO really took over. And then when Aurora went out of business, Tommy kind of was making a good insurgence in the 80s. They had a lot of returns though. Tommy had a lot of returns. And I think it really because of a lot of these extreme sets, loopy doop sets, cliffhangers, even Tycho was doing all these cliffhangers and just, crazy things. And the more you do those type of things, you're prone to more returns from the retailers. And Fly was not necessarily, so when Fly started making cars, they were cars really not to race. They were more, if you look at a Fly car, if you look at any Fly car, especially the early ones, 1990s, early or late 90s, all the way to when they went out of business, their cars were really not racing cars. Okay. They had terrible bodies or chassis and they didn't run very well. It was the bodies. People were buying them for the bodies. The look. Oh, wow. That looks realistic. And Scalextric and Ninko and Carrera, they were more, the bodies was okay, but the chassis, let's get the car to race well, but that's the same thing. It's in HO too, is that, you have Viper, you have TFX, you have all these people that are making all these components to make the cars go faster. And you're pushing the envelope. You're wanting to get it perfect. And I try to teach people that, okay, this is a toy. Okay, this is a slot car. This is not, you have to realize that,
I don't
if
like
you want
going
to have
super fast.
what?
I don't like going super fast.
No, I don't either, but that's what they, all these buyers kept telling the companies faster, 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 faster. We want faster. No, faster. No, we want it to go faster than that, and okay, well, how fast do you go?
Fast now. Now, like, you can't even see them. They go so fast.
Correct.
Now. And you get,
That's why I've always loved Thunderjets.
Yeah. What is your favorite 132nd? What do you think today in the 132nd market? What do you think of?
Oh, wow, that's a loaded question. Okay, so you've got Scalextric, which makes a great car. They make a good car, but everybody is trying to go to realism now. They want to have it to realistic scales. They want to have a realistic interior. They want to have it realistic to where you look at it and you go, is that a slot car or is that a real car? If you took a picture of it. And so that's keep driving the cost up. And so sooner or later, there's the cost and then there's the diminishing. And where are you hitting there? And I think Scalextric hit it with, I cannot buy a Scalextric car and sell it for $69. It's just, I'm not doing it anymore. I've told them.
And here's the even bit to add, to piggyback what you're saying. If you choose to run a Scalextric car on, say, a Carrera track, you would have to get a guide pin for it, which is not cheap because you have to basically go into it because the way Scalextric does it. And you would also, if you wanted to run digital, you would have to run that. And so now you got a $110, $115 car versus Carrera's $50 price point.
Correct. So, and this is the people were all saying, why couldn't they just had one digital system? Well, here's the problem. And I've said this in the very beginning about the digital is that SCX I'm going to say Techno Toys wanted to make a digital system. And so they redid the track and they made the track. The lane change is in the car, not on the track. And ever since Carrera and Scalextric came out with their systems, they always were having problems. This was all through the 80s or through 2008, all the way till, I don't know, maybe 2014. They were having power problems that the more switches you put in your layout, the less power you have, because if everybody is pushing their switch lanes, you're going to draw power down. Everybody wanted to have their own digital system. Okay. And why can't we have a universal? Well, because, and I kept telling them, well, there's a universal digital train system because all the trains run on the same type of track. It's just train track. And so you have a decoder and it's all universal decoder system. Your track is all the same. I don't care if you use Atlas track, Bachmann track, it's a train track. Okay. Now they don't have necessarily connectors to it, but it's all two rails. It's same width of rails. And so Scalextric and Carrera said, well, we're going to do our own digital system. And so they have the switch lanes, and their switch lanes are basically 18 inches, not 12 inches for SCX. So you can put more switches in an SCX track than you could on Carrera or SCX, which nobody's ever disproved about that. I've still stand by that. And I've always said, and I said this when I sold SCX, I said, with SCX, you can do more with less with SCX, and you could have a bigger for less with SCX. So on a 4x8 sheet of plywood, you could have every amount of switches you want, but you could not do that with the Carrera or Scalextric set on the same amount of space because the switches are too big.
Well, and they did that too because I think they were running up on some of those curves coming out. People would just hit it so fast they'd just run out, right?
Well, I mean, we had a curve too. The problem is that you're gonna crash. When you're in a rail system, you're gonna crash. That's just the nature of it. And that's slot cars to begin with, unless you're gonna keep in your own lane. If you're in your own lane, then now if you have a cross track where you're switching lanes, you're going to crash too, but That would be the nature of racing anyways. And that's why I've told SCX that, when they initially came out with the switch tracks, they were initially 9 inches. And that was in the old Thunderjets. And Thunderjets were slower. And so they could handle that switch lane, okay, because it would switch lanes, 9-inch track. But now with all these faster cars, your switch track really needs to be a 15-inch switch track and a more gradual switch so that the cars kind of slide into that other lane. And I told them that would be a hit piece if they did that. Now, a lot of people don't like switch tracks. They don't like them. They're really more for the consumer. And a lot of this novelty, all the different pieces of track, the cobblestone, the squeeze track, the chicanes, a lot of your professional drivers, they don't necessarily like all that stuff. They want to go fast, speed, and it's speed. But somebody that's got a novel track, they love all those different pieces of track in their layout. And you got to learn to rate.
I have 3 or 4 pieces of that cobblestone that eventually I'd like to put it somewhere, and I bought you out of adapters years ago.
The Scale Electric?
The Scalelectric ones.
Yeah, I think I remember you now buying all this stuff from me.
I have a bunch.
Layout? I don't see the layout. What's going on?
Well, I had to move around a lot, the room and the house, and I finally got the garage back. So there's my HO layout right there. It's about 52-foot lanes. And then let's see if I can pick it up. Yeah. And then I'm building this table right now.
Got it. Okay.
But yeah, I have a bunch of I bought the generic SCX set from you back in the day.
Oh my gosh.
And then the stock car challenge. And then
we sold so many. So in 2004, SCX came out with a dump display for retailers. It was a NASCAR set. And man, they sold, I think, about 75 to 100,000 of those sets. I mean, they were a great set. They were analog, a 2-car analog NASCAR set, and we went through a lot at Bass Pro. But I don't know what the future is for SCX. I know what it would be if I was able to sell it for them.
Yeah, but you think there'd even be a consumer market for them after they kind of poo-pooed on the consumers twice in the last 10 years?
That would be hard, but I think once people understood that it's a superior system. But the problem is, they're not doing a lot of cars. See, I mean, Technotoys had the most NASCARs than anybody in between 2005 and 2010. Nearly 30 NASCAR they came out with.
And I'm still trying to track them all down.
And they had the car of tomorrow, and then they had the stupid. So that car you have there is the Aero car.
Yeah. Yes. And also because you're talking about it.
See, and the problem with NASCAR is they've really destroyed. See, that is the car of tomorrow, but the Dale Earnhardt is the Aero car. That is the first generation. And so they literally, NASCAR told them you can't use those cars anymore. So all those molds had to be trashed.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Huh?
So what I'm saying is that was a new chassis. They had to quit using the Aero chassis, and they had to go to the car of tomorrow. You understand what I'm saying?
I do.
So they had to spend all this money. They spent probably $100,000 in all of the NASCAR Aero molds.
Did NASCAR have to do it?
What?
They had to, right? Because it's the car tomorrow, right?
Yeah, they had to quit making cars. So they got all these molds. Oh, we're not allowed to use them anymore. Then why did we spend all this money making these? And then they went into the car tomorrow, and then they changed it again. You can't make your companies keep buying new molds, and that's what happened.
So this is the Aero car, right?
That's right. That's the Aero car. That's the first generation car they made. Then they came out with that car right there, which is the car of tomorrow.
Yeah.
Great
And
car. Great car. Both of them were really nice cars. Good motors, quality cars, great ran great. I mean, I would do the hobby show in Chicago at Rosemont Convention Center, and I had a 4-lane digital system set up like an oval layout. And I would get kids on Saturday and Sunday were consumer days. And I would get kids 20 or 30 deep in line to get in line to do SCX digital. Because I had 6 cars running at the same time. Oh my gosh. I was going crazy. And I told them, I said, all right, guys, listen up. If you crash, you go to the end of the line and you start over again. Well, the kids caught on, see. They realized that if they crashed, they would have to go to the end of the line. So a lot of them were just staying on the track, riding around. And then I would finally have to tell them, okay, you're done. Go to the end of the line, start again. But they figured this out. Lane swings. Oh my gosh, these kids were having a blast with the digital system. It was, I mean, when it works, when you've got 6 cars on 2 lanes of track and they're switching lanes like that, there's nothing more exciting. And the kids caught it, man. They loved it. They loved it.
That's awesome. You know, that new SCX Advance believe it advertises 9 cars.
Yes, it is. It's basically, it's a wireless system, so they can really technically go as high as they want. But, there's only so many cars you could put on 2 lanes of track.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the best track that I ever made, which you can go onto my website and see my older videos from 2008, 9, and 10, is the greatest layout I built. And that was the best layout I ever built. It was, to me, the best layout design ever. And I had a 4-lane coming into 4-lane, 2 lanes. Then I went into 4 lanes. It was perfect. And man, you could run 6 cars and just have a blast. It was a phenomenal layout.
You got a video of that?
What?
You have a video on it?
Oh yeah. I had a family come over to the shed upstairs in the shed because I had it upstairs in the shed set up. Okay. And, I must have sold. Matter of fact, there was another slot car company called Slot Cars 123 out of Chicago. And they must have sold. I think they told me they sold at least 100 to 200 of those ultimate layouts because she put that as a package. Well, everything you needed to build that layout. It was like 2 pit boxes. It was bank curves. Everything you needed to build that layout. And she compiled everything you need to build that layout.
That's pretty cool. I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, those are my older videos from 2008 and 9 and 10. Sweet.
Adam says the best layout I've ever seen you do was how you laid out those nuggets on the center. He kind of got me with that comment.
See how he does that? See how
he snuck that one in.
He's missing a screw up here. You know that, right?
Well, and too, the word he was saying about his name is that I guess YouTube, if you change your name too much,
yes,
you wait like 14 days, and the poor guy, he ended up having it stuck on that for that 14 days. That sucks. Well, awesome. Are you getting tired?
It's been a long day. We had a lot of orders, man. We must have let's see how many orders have come in since we closed. Okay, so we somebody bought a Tyco set. Then we have somebody buy a mega lot of RoboGear. I sell a ton of that RoboGear. And then somebody bought a Ford GT and a Lotus Scale Electric. So let's refresh and see how many orders came in since 5 o'clock. Holy cow. Guns.
Oh, get out of there.
Guns, and more guns. Anyway, so it's been a fun day. We got tomorrow. I'm gonna relax tomorrow. I really don't want to do a thing tomorrow. I know that's not going to happen.
Enjoy your family.
I don't want to do. I want to lay down on my chair and just sit there all day, and literally just sleep the whole day.
Me too. My wife's got me running around a bunch.
I don't know. I'm not going. A lot of stores are closed now. Walmart's closed, Target's closed. A lot of stores are closed on Thanksgiving now. They're not opening anymore.
Oh, I'm talking about family. We got to go to her dad's and her mom's and her
they're all coming
stepmoms.
over.
Yeah.
Well, did you have any other questions or what? Or are we, we've been an hour and 15 minutes.
Well, and you and I talked for about 20, 30 minutes before we even went on too, right? So that was good. We kind of cleared everything up and talked about everything. I'm excited for Friday at Pro Tinker Toys. All Scales has a question though for you. If you don't,
those will be going up Friday.
Are those the NASCAR Super 3s? Yeah,
they're really nice.
All right. I'm excited about that. But I don't know if you could tell, I kind of like NASCAR.
Well, they're generic NASCAR.
I had a video about them when they first announced them. I did a little short about them.
Yeah, I mean, NASCAR has just literally killed their, this is where I tell people, in the 1960s, there was no licensing. So all these car companies, all these toy companies were just making cars and they were just put Ford Mustang. And, you would think that these companies would see, okay, that promotes our product. Well, some greedy lawyer said, well, hey, you know what? We can get you money for those. Well, now it's coming to bite them in the butt because now NASCAR is losing, we're losing money because they're not. No, you're losing money because people aren't going to pay what you want for these licensing. Okay. And, now a lot of these companies, like if you go, a lot of these licensing are expiring, like Disney, they've lost the Mickey Mouse license because that's expired, and licensing probably should just go away. There shouldn't be licensing. That would help everybody out. Now, is people going to make money? Yeah, but you know what? You're promoting the. I would want if somebody wants to use Pro Tinker, I don't care.
Well, go ahead. It's become crony, just like everything
crony
else.
Capitalism. Yes.
Yeah, and there's probably millions and millions and millions of dollars changing hands before anybody ever gets really paid in this licensing deal.
Oh, it's crazy.
All because of lawyers.
Yep.
So. Yep. But no, they don't want to hear us gripe about lawyers.
No, we don't. So let's not. We just say NASCAR is perfect for only 3 body choices. No, it's not. Because if they change, see the problem with so the car that they're using right now, okay, for NASCAR, I guarantee you NASCAR would not approve those bodies to be used on current cars. They would want them to make sure the car is the current car. And if they do any changes to it, they're going to tell Auto World, you need to do a new body because the body has to be current. That's what happened with slot cars.
The last time I just showed you. Now we got instead of the car tomorrow, now we have the next gen car. And we've already heard rumbles about it in the news and the leaks from the Carrera licenses that it will be the next gen car. But of course it would be because that's what last NASCAR want,
Correct. And so now you have to spend all this money on all these bodies, all these molds. Okay. You have to do 3 new molds, which is going to cost you 30, 40,000 or 15 for the 130 or HO, 20,000, I think for, 20 or 30,000 for a 132nd, because you're going to get 3 impressions or 6 cars per pop.
Dodge is talking about coming back too. So,
yeah. But that's the way it is. And,
awesome.
You just gotta, we gotta keep promoting it. And, I think they're awesome. I think the new NASCARs are awesome.
I do too. I like NASCAR. I don't like NASCAR in its current form.
No, I don't know. Nobody does. A lot of people hate NASCAR right now.
But I'm going to try to grow the things that I like and I'm passionate about, and that is slot cars and racing. And so I will support them, and I will do that by making documentaries. My next one out is on round 2.
Oh, cool.
It's called what did I title? Round 2: The Pied Piper of Lost Brands. That's why I titled it.
You know what? I'll get a hold of Tom Lowell, and I'll say, hey Tom, I know a guy, Patriot Hobbies. I did an interview with him. Would you mind wanting to do an interview with Patriot Hobbies? So I'll get a hold of Tom Lowell next week and see if he would do a live stream with you.
Thank you, sir. That would be awesome.
Okay.
And I'll put that round 2 documentary out Friday morning.
That'd be a good interview if you did an interview with Tom Lowell. So that's an interesting story too.
Hey, speaking of him, and thank you, I have a question about it. I ran across on eBay a Tom Lowe NASCAR painted livery extraction car. Was that something they put out, or is that somebody did custom?
Now they've come out with a lot of stuff. Okay, they had NASCAR about 6 years ago, and matter of fact, they had NASCAR, about 5 years ago. And I told Craig, because Kim down at REH still. Matter of fact, I was selling some. Hold on a second. Give me 1 second here. NASCAR Auto World. Yeah, it was iWheels. Okay, so it was basically, I think it came out in 2016, and they were Casey Kane, Jeff Gordon, Jimmy Johnson, and that was SC316. Yeah, right there. That was the last time they came out with NASCAR. And Craig, yeah, that was the last. 2016 was the last time they've done NASCAR. And Craig says the licensing is just crazy. They just are literally insane with of how much they want for these cars. And he just said, here's what it is. People have to understand that it's not just, you're not paying $1 on that. You're paying $1 on that car. Okay. So let's say you're paying an extra $1 for that car, but you're also having to pay. They have all these residual. They're saying, okay, well, we want a guarantee of $20,000. And then we want a percentage of those 20,000. And then they might even have another guarantee of over, a year, where you're going to have to do this amount in a year. It's not just a license to do the car. There are all these regulations on how much you have to do in business with that license. And Auto World says, screw that. We'll just do our own generic cars. And so what they do, they went to Bobby Isaac. They went to Petty and said, hey, can we do your cars in the old stock car days? And look at that. NASCAR is not getting a single dime from Kyle Petty or from
any of them,
because they're not licensed through NASCAR, which I think is great. So 2016 was the last year for them doing NASCAR. And I asked him, are you going to do NASCAR again? He goes, okay, so here's the unofficial news. So is everybody ready for the unofficial news? So I talked to Craig yesterday, and I said, Craig, there's Viper and there's TFX. And I said, I've told you this before. I said, you need to come out with a high-end Thunderjet chassis. And he said, we agree on that. And so they're in that process. Now, with the Love set, so there is, and I can't tell you officially, but there is talk about doing a NASCAR set with Loves, because Loves has a lot of pull with NASCAR, so they can do a lot of things that Auto World can't.
They are the main sponsor for the number 34 car, Michael McDowell.
Correct. Yep. So there is a talk that there's going to be, that's what they're going to be talking about. I can't confirm it or anything. I'm just giving you what maybe come out. And there is going to be another semi set, but different decos on the semis. So those are going to happen next October. So it's great news.
Do you know what You know that Love's has a like a 1-ton truck, right? I don't know if
Yes.
they do it up there that they run around and they fix
Yes.
people's tires. Are they going to
Yes.
do that one too? Okay.
You
Awesome.
never know,
Excellent.
because they do. Okay, so I'll just say this: it might not initially start with slot cars, but Auto World does great die cast, and I would not put it past them to do an HO die cast of that truck, 1-ton truck.
Okay.
Love's 1-ton truck. I would not put it past them to do that.
Awesome.
Or a 1/43rd scale, because they do a lot of 1/64th and 1/18th scale. Now, they could do a 1/18th scale Love's truck, but that would be $100 truck. I don't know if they want to. I think they want to try to keep it down to a $20, and that would be a 1/64 scale. I mean, we just got in these. Hold on, let me show you. Hold on, give me a minute.
Thanks for coming, guys. Hope you're enjoying it.
I bought a bunch of closeouts from Auto World. They have, Craig, I said to Craig, I tell Craig, I said, listen, whenever you get a bunch of junk in your warehouse, just ship it to me, okay? Because I got 240 of these things, and it says defective, and I can't figure out what is defective on these things, but they're basically just a great die cast, but it's basically
It's a truck and a camper, huh?
yeah, it's a 1980 Chevy K10 Silverado with camper, and it's just a fun little die cast, pickup truck, with a little camper on the back.
That's perfect.
And so imagine that with the service vehicle for Loves, with all the detail they could put in that. That'd look sweet. So, that's something that's, and this thing normally sold for like $15, and I've got these now for $5.99.
Oh, I'm gonna go buy one of those tonight.
I bought a bunch of them.
But when I was and I told you the other day, I drove my 2 oldest boys to
I know.
Fort Worth, and I stopped at all those Loves. They've got a pretty big rack of die cast.
What?
He says, what?
Why? Well, there's some out in the shed, but there should be some right there in that drawer. There's no in that drawer. Well, go out in the shed in that wire rack that's next to my air compressor. There should be one of the tubs. There should be all those rubber gloves. All right. Women, they never leave you alone. I'm at the store. I told you I was doing an interview.
About 30 minutes ago, I was constantly having to tap this because my mother-in-law kept calling. She called like 3 times back to back. So
okay. So what was your last question?
Oh, I didn't have any. I just wanted to tell you happy Thanksgiving and thank you for doing this, for calling me.
Yeah, no problem. Anybody that wants to do an interview with me, I know there was another guy that wants to do it, and I don't want to seem like I'm slighting him. I can't remember. I'm losing my mind. But if anybody wants for me to do an interview, you should call Bryan. So I shouldn't call you right, Adam. He said, yeah, you want to email me, okay, at bcyyoung@gmail. Okay, you want to and I like this. I got to learn how to do this because I would love to do. I don't know how to do this or pop this into my live stream. I'd like to interview people too and do this kind of thing.
Yeah, I like this format where it kind of really gets the hobby and information and experience out there, and you can have a nice conversation.
Yeah, this is kind of cool. I mean, now SVR will probably get mad because we're not 1080p. Right, SVR? Are we 1080p SVR? Let me see. Let me see if we're 1080p.
Well,
Let's see.
he was in this test stream earlier, so he's probably just happy it's not going zzz.
Oh, that's right. Oh, it's 720. We're at 720. Can you imagine when I was doing my original videos? Go look at them from 10 years ago. I was doing them and they were like 380p.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And
You know
how
that?
fast.
Do you know that when I was uploading some of my videos, it would take an hour to 2 hours? I would just click upload and I'd wait. I'd watch a movie and it'd take that long for it to get uploaded. It was amazing back then.
Oh yeah, it would take forever, right?
Forever.
Everything took forever. It probably a better world.
Let's see. StreamYard. What is StreamYard 720?
StreamYard is you see that in the top right corner of the screen?
Yeah.
It's just it's a application that runs all this streams.
No, I know that, but then how do you pop it into your YouTube?
Oh, it just signs up and it connects to it. When you sign up, it'll say, hey, what do you want to sign up with? And then it'll give them your Gmail, and your Gmail will know everything you got anyways. And it'll ask you automatically.
So do I have to download StreamYard then?
Nope, it's a browser based.
It's a browser based. All right, well, I'll have to figure that. Maybe Ryan will know how to do this.
And then you could do stuff like, can you do this? And then maybe that.
Yeah, I like what you're doing here. You're popping up messages and everything.
And then I can put you solo to talk, show something,
Here.
Yeah. Zoom. What is that? Is that a 143? Yeah.
Yeah, Carrera. We've got a special car, so I had a bad man. This guy sent this car back because there was bad paint right there.
Where?
Right here. The paint is bad right there.
Huh.
Right there. See it right there?
Uh-huh.
So I had to send him a new car. Well, guys,
this one is good.
Yeah, that's been a good car. It's been selling really well. But my Mayflower is my favorite.
Yeah, I like it. Kids like it.
I love my Mayflower. I love it. Well, guys, let's see. My wife is making noodles for tomorrow. I am going to go to my shed and have a cigar. I'm going to debrief. I'm going to debrief tonight.
Hey, Sunday Slot Cars. Awesome.
Sunday Slot Cars. That's the name.
Billy.
Let's see. Sunday. So I'm so mad I didn't get notified about this stream when I clicked notify me. Okay. Clint Talbot is going to sleep. Clint Talbot is going to sleep now.
Don't talk about aluminum.
That's right. Helium aluminum. Holy, you know what? Let me tell you something real quick. Let me just tell you a story. Okay. Do you know where I got that theory from or that idea?
No.
You know where I got it from? I don't know if any of you guys ever watched the Twilight or the Outer Limits.
Yeah. The original or the new one?
The original. No, there is no new. There's only the original. Okay. Let's make that clear. The new one was pathetic. Okay. So anyways, the original Twilight Zone season 1 had a 2-part series with I can't believe I can't remember his name.
You're talking about the episode where they the humans change into a different form, right? Because
the Inheritors.
Yeah.
And the Inheritors. And they make this steel that is lighter than air and it will connect together and you won't even see the seams. And I'm thinking, oh, there's my helium aluminum right there. And so it's outside of our technology now. But 200 years ago, if you told people, hey, we're going to go to the moon or we're going to fly there, they thought you were crazy. We can't do that. We can't fly. What do you mean fly? What do you mean jets? What's jets? Where are you going to go? 700 miles an hour? You're crazy. So anyways, so we'll end on helium aluminum. How's that? And we finally got Clint Talbot to say ha ha. So
that's good. That's good. At least he's not asleep, right?
That's right. He's not asleep. So we want to. So I'll let you kind of end it up. So it's your show.
Oh no, I don't really know what to do. I guess we're going to end. Thank you for coming. For watching this first interview. I think it went great. Don't forget to go check out Pro Tinker's product on Friday. They're going to have a big sale. SVR, thank you for moderating the chat. You did awesome. Billy, I'm sorry you didn't get a notification. Thank you everyone for being for coming out. I feel like I'm Greg Fokker off of Meet the Parents trying to do that prayer at the very beginning.
What happened?
Well, you ever see Meet the Parents when he goes to the parents' house and they ask him to do the prayer, and so he's like, it just becomes real awkward. So it's funny. All right, guys. Thank you.
See you later. Civilista, baby.
That's right. That's right.